2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've been not hearing anything. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good.
One, two, three, 1, 2, 3. I think it's good. Let me know if it's good. I see you typing. Okay, perfect.
Does anyone need to use the restroom?
live? Will be live? Okay. And y'all will be too? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and, the 2-minute warning, I'm gonna go live on Facebook, so we'll be live here in just a second as soon as I hit the buttons. Just a reminder to silence cell phones, please. Good morning. I want to welcome everyone and thank everyone for coming up today. What we're going to do is kind of give some clarity to what's been going on over the last, I would say, 72 hours. It's been kind of a upsetting time for our community. But I want to first thank everyone that's been involved in this. I want to thank our superintendent of schools, Lex Carswell. He'll be speaking after me, and then our State Attorney John Durrett, also Chief Butler as well. All of us have partnered very well with this, along with our state and federal partners that we've been working on this issue. Also, I just have to say thank you to my staff here at the Sheriff's Office. I know that the social media can be pretty brutal, especially when things that affect our daily lives go on, and people can be very critical of that. But I want you to understand that since Sunday at about 3:30 p.m., our folks, along with the rest of these, have worked nonstop to ensure the safety of our community and our schools. So with that, just so everyone knows, we have effected arrest on 2 individuals for threatening on social media. Christopher Smith Jr., 17-year-old. He made the threat on Monday and was arrested within hours of that threat. And that's because of the good work of our men and women here at the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. Maya Jenkins, a 14-year-old, also made a threat later that evening and was arrested within hours of that threat. So how did we get here? On Sunday, September the 8th, at approximately 3:38 p.m., a threat of 2 schools being shot was posted on an Instagram account, and basically said that next school shooting is Lake City High and Middle School, and there's some acronyms and all that in here. Ain't fixing to be nobody living. At 3:53 p.m., our school resource deputies, along with our detectives, began investigating and assessing the threat to determine the course of action that we needed to make. At 5:15 that evening, FBI, which is also another partner with us and has been very instrumental in helping us identify threats, notified us that they were as well working on this. It was determined through investigative techniques and that one of the accounts that was used and that they received the information from originated through Madison County. Our detectives reached out to Madison County, and we found that they were also working a case in Madison County. Through some of the accounts that we were monitoring and investigating, it was determined that there was a 13-year-old in Madison who their threat originated from, and an arrest was effected that night. So we weren't able to tie that one back to Columbia County, but we're still working that one as well. So moving forward, Monday we received another complaint, which was the 17-year-old. A teacher was notified from an Instagram post about that. We immediately jumped on that, and there again, through investigative techniques, we were able to arrest that individual. Later that afternoon, we received the second threat, and they got to work on that. And I'm not going to divulge all of our things that we do. And I know you want to ask those questions, but there's a lot of things that we put in place that I'm not going to discuss, because we're not going to inform these people on how to better cause this mayhem and confusion in our community. So along with that, they made that arrest. The reason that we did not call a press conference yesterday is we received another one from a private school, and we immediately started working on that. We have run that one down, but there's not. It was not a published threat. It was one sent from one child to another, allegedly. So we are working on that. And I wanted to make sure that whenever I held this press conference that we were able to give you as much and as accurate information as possible. We have enough disinformation going out throughout our community, and parents are upset. So I want to also back up and say that we understand the concern, and you know that they have about sending their children to school. And since I've been sheriff, we have invested heavily in our school resource program. We have probably some of the best resource deputies and school administrators working together, closely together, to ensure that safety. And we work within our means to be able to provide that. We've put additional security measures at schools. Sunday afternoon, because of the threats, and we were trying to determine where, those were directed mainly at the high school and the middle school, but there was also some concern from some of the private schools that don't have the additional security at their schools. They requested additional assets. We were able to pull in not only our additional people, but we pulled in the police department to assist us with making sure that those schools had security personnel there. We also pulled in some state assets to ensure that we had law enforcement on hand at each one of those schools, and as best as we possibly could. Again, I want to say that all of that took place behind the scenes while everybody's sending out all of this disinformation, and people get a hold of something. And I would caution people that this social media is terrible. Whenever people get a little bit of information and it has not been fact-checked and it goes out, it sends people into disarray. The other incident that we had yesterday, we had an individual down in a Fort White area that it lives close to the school that decided he wanted to do some target shooting. And when they heard the shots from around the school, from within the school, of course, we immediately went to our drills as far as lockdown, and we responded with a very robust response. It was determined that the individual decided to do some target practicing, which is not a good time to be doing that after we've had all of this going on in our community. So he got a very stern talking with, and I think he's going to hold off on target practicing anymore for a while. But I want to ensure that the community knows that the law enforcement and our school system, along with our state attorney, is working very hard. These people are going to be held accountable. And to understand that we do everything we can. But I want the community to understand this, all of this disinformation and this chaos that they're generating, we're feeding into exactly what the bad folks want. They want us to not feel secure. But I can promise you this, bad things are going to happen in the world. We're doing everything we possibly can. And I want to reassure the community that we have to come together collectively, and we have to stand by each other, and we have to take care of one another. And it is your choice if you want to send your child to public school or to homeschool them or to a private school. That is your choice. But you need to make that choice and make a commitment to stand with us, to stand with your law enforcement and stand with your school district, and let's, as a community, come together and let's work together. When these people do these bad things, let's hold them accountable. And let's get them out of here so that the rest of us can live in peace. So with that, I want to turn it over to Superintendent Carswell, and then he'll be followed by State Attorney Durrett, and then I'll come back up and answer any questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. The number one priority for Columbia County Schools is to create a safe environment for all our students. The last few days have been very taxing on our school district. But with that said, we have worked and will continue to work daily on increasing our school safety in these ever-changing times. We meet daily to discuss individual schools and their security needs, and we implement changes based on those needs accordingly. Our school board meets in executive session to make decisions on how to improve school safety. They are very proactive and involved in creating that safe environment. In these difficult times, and this is a message I really want to emphasize, I believe as leaders, including myself, all school district staff, all law enforcement, as well as parents, we need to be strong and resilient for our children. Our schools are safe. We need to convey that calming influence and positive presence to our students. No matter what we feel on the inside, as leaders, we must convey strength, resilience, and faith in the men and women that are there to create a safe school environment. With that said, this is the second thing I really want to emphasize. With that said, social media is not something we can control as a district or as a community. Parents, please listen. We need your help. Monitor your child's social media activity. Take their phone, take their device in your hands. They are your children and your responsibility. Please help us help you. Finally, I want to say thank you to Sheriff Hunter, State Attorney Durrett, for the steadfast support to our students and community. I would also like to thank the Columbia County Sheriff's Office as an entirety, the Lake City Police Department, FHP for the past few days. They have continued their commitment to keeping our schools safe in our community. And so, just to emphasize it again, parents have got to step up and monitor your child's social media activity. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. John Brett, State Attorney. Just want to start by thanking Mr. Carswell, thanking Mr. Hunter, both of you. Sheriff, thank you for providing us this opportunity to speak here this morning to address something that's affecting so many of us. I appreciate everything y'all do in your line of work. I know how tirelessly y'all work to address these things. I know there's a lot of men and women that ain't been to bed in a long time. You know, I have 2 children in the public school system. You know, I support it unequivocally. And I heard Mr. Carswell in talking about parents and being involved. And yes, please, I can't do everything. Sheriff Hunter can't do everything. Mr. Carswell can't do everything. And I don't expect a parent to be able to do everything. I know it's hard raising teenagers. I know it's hard. And you want to say, well, go through the phones, go through everything, go through that. I know you feel weird sometimes when you do it. I feel bad. I think I got 2 good ones. You know, I don't go through every, but at a minimum. And I took my daughter to school today. She's 14. I asked her if it was all right if I said that. She said it was. But we talked. I don't take her as often as I used to. I'd like to. But we talked about what's happening, about the people around you, some people you don't even know, and these posts and these things you see on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat. I don't know. There's a lot of them. All right? And we talked about it, and that's what at a minimum, please, just encourage you to talk to your children, if nothing else, for their mental health and to see what's going on, make sure they're all right, okay? Now, you want to talk about what happens to people, that do things like this, all right? Well, you think it's a joke? Yeah. Think it's a joke to spread, things on social media about how you're going to shoot up a school? You think that's funny? I'm not laughing. I think it's funny. Children are murdered in Georgia. And you won't put this stuff up. I ain't laughing. Parents, their stomach falls or their heart falls to their stomach when they get a call or a text from their child at school. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get worked up. They're terrified. You think that's funny? It's not. You're going to find out what happens when they pick you up and they bring you into court. It's not a joke. We'll see you in court. I'm going to do my job. I'm not threatening anybody. I'm going to evaluate everything. I'm going to do everything I need to do. But I'm telling you, don't do it. These children, I don't know. Like I say, I talk to teenagers. I don't know how much they listen sometimes. Appreciate the consequence. Regardless, we will find you. We will trace you. Your friends will talk. They will arrest you. The best thing you can hope for is you're going to be held in secure detention until we figure out whether or not you need to go to prison, or if you get treated as a juvenile. It's not a child's game you're playing. Sorry. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Sheriff Hunter, for everything you do. I appreciate you beyond words. Chief Butler, Mr. Carswell, men and women here, thank y'all.
One other thing is I wanted to make the media aware of as well. It wasn't just Columbia County that was affected by this. I actually was on the phone with Sheriff Cronister in Hillsborough County this morning. Multiple threats, and also, just so people know, that during the threat on Sunday, Leon County was experiencing one as well. Jefferson County was as well. And this is what I want the community to understand. I know you want answers and you want them now, but there's investigative processes we have to go through, and I know that people have a hard time with being patient while these guys and gals are working out here. But I'm telling you, they are working hard. Bay County, Escambia County, Leon County, Jefferson County, Hillsborough County, Hazelhurst, Georgia. And this is where it gets confusing, because kids will repost things or put things out there that came from Georgia. A lot of people don't realize there's high schools in other states that have the same name. And we've experienced that here already with some of the threats that we've had in the past. But it was Derry's High School in Hazelhurst, Georgia, that received the threat, and then some kids got a hold of it in Leon, so they were working that as well on Sunday. So I want you to understand, we're doing everything we can physically possible. And what State Attorney said was, the men and women, we effected arrest on an individual the other night at 3:45 a.m. And they worked all day. They stayed on it. They stayed on it. I can't say enough about how well of a job that they've done. And that man standing down there, Sergeant Ball, our supervisor for our school resource deputy, have done a fantastic job. Him and Ms. Tatum, and what Lex Carswell said about, us working together. Y'all don't realize the things that go on behind the scenes. Since Marjorie Stoneman incident took place, we put so much in place. I work with the Sheriff's Association to ensure that we had deputies at every school. I've been an advocate of that ever since I've been sheriff. And we have that in Columbia County, and they take it very serious. Well, we do threat assessments on a weekly basis. They do assessments on children. We watch social media as much as we can, but as they said, we can't do it all by ourselves. We've got to have parental help. We've got to have these parents engaged. And let me just say, the world's a crazy place. And we actually have to kind of help control our environment that's right around us. And what we accept is what's gonna happen. So if you want to accept things and let your child go do, then there's going to be consequences. And I can promise you this, as long as I'm sheriff here and this kind of stuff's going on, we're going to hunt and we're going to find and we're going to hold these people accountable. And that's an assurance that I want to make sure that our community understands, along with these men and women here, along with our folks. So I'll take any questions now. Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to tell us the private school that did have the threat yesterday?
Lake City Christian Academy.
What kind of penalties are these students facing?
Some of it's up to 15 years in prison. And there's a lot of factors that go into dealing with the juveniles. And I know that the legislature is going to be looking at this again this year on some of the, we worked with some of the juvenile offenses over the last several years on enhancing some penalties for some of the juvenile crime going on, the violent crime that went on. And we've got some of those things in place. There's also some technologies that are available to us now that have been made available that we can utilize to be able to find out these perpetrators. Anybody else?
You mentioned additional law enforcement resources were at schools Monday. Do you know how many and from how many agencies exactly?
Yes, sir, but I'm not going to put out how many we had. We brought in, there was a lot of plainclothes folks that people didn't even realize. We used a lot of different techniques, and I am not going to put that out to the media. We have some things in place that right now as we speak, and some of that will, depending on threats and whatnot, we'll be shifting some of those assets around, and we're going to make it hard for those folks to find a soft target. I can tell you that. But along with that, and I know that the superintendent's been working on this with us as far as our hardening of schools. There's a lot of things that have gone on over the last several years, trying to work on one entry points. And I know on social media, some of the parents were saying, we need to do these things, we need to do that. Things are in place and they are being done. The metal detector type things, those things cost money, and we're trying to get monies allocated for those things. But all of that comes at a price. And it costs manpower to do those things. You can't just put one up there and it works by itself. So, we're working on some things. The new school that's being built, it's going to have a lot more robust security measures for that school. And it's a shame that we're here with our society. It's a shame. And when are we going to stand up as a community and take it back? We can't do it all by ourselves. And it's easy to throw those darts and be critical of what we're doing. But I can tell you right now, our folks here have got heart, and we're going to stay after it. And I'm proud of the sheriff's office. I'm proud of our community as far as our law enforcement community. But I want our community as a whole to stand up and support us. It's easy to throw those darts, but come on out. When it's time to, to request money for budgets and all, don't leave us standing up there alone requesting that. As a community, you come out, your voice will be heard. That's what we need is the support, more support of our community. And I thank those individuals that got on that social media whenever they were being critical of us and said, wait, not so fast. They are working hard. They are doing a good job, because they are. The men and women of this sheriff's office and the other law enforcement around here have worked hard. And I want that understood by this community. Bad things are going to happen. You can't get around it. And nobody has a crystal ball. And do you think for one second if I could predict that this was going to happen, that I wouldn't prevent it before it happened? Yes, I would. But no one has a crystal ball. Doesn't matter who stands in this position right here. Bad things are going to happen. But we have to have things in place to minimize that and to be able to respond to it. And I think we've done a very good job of that. And it was proven last year at a ball game, when the men and women watching the social media prevented a bad thing from happening at one of our high school football games. And that's just one of the things. There's so many more that I could name off that we prevented that doesn't even make the news media. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
If the funds are allocated, what other security measures do you see Columbia County Schools having other than metal detectors?
Fencing, there's one entry points. There's just a lot of other things, but I'm not going to get into the specifics of that because sure don't want to let the bad guys know what we're up to. Yes, ma'am?
I was gonna ask, for Columbia County Schools now, are you guys gonna make an announcement to the students there, telling them how serious this is?
We're already working on that. Our PIO and some of our other folks, along with the school system, are putting some information out. This is what's going to happen if you do this. And the other side of this is the consequences and holding them to those consequences. And that's what we've had in the past where our juveniles, it's like, oh, they're kids and all, we don't need to punish them, it's going to ruin their future. They need to understand that before they act out. That this is what's going to happen to you, and then this, when you do this, this is what you get. And that sounds tough, but that's what we're going to have to do if we're going to take our communities back and let these juveniles understand, or these kids understand that, life is tough. And it's not going to be a bed of roses when you graduate high school. And you better start preparing yourself for the future. And it's just like everybody standing in this room here. If you want to have a career, you want to have a future, what you do now is going to affect downrange. And these kids, and we've got to start teaching them that, look, you do bad things, this is what happens to you. And you're going to wind up in prison, or you're not going to be able to get a job. And then you're going to be back in a bad place. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am?
One more question. I don't know if you can answer this, but for the 2 teens you did arrest this week, did they realize how serious this was?
One of them said that he was just joking about it. And that's the hard part about this, it's just not a joke. This is serious business. There were so many assets diverted to deal with this situation. It's just unreal, the amount of assets that we had to take and move around. And multiply that times Bay County, Leon County, Jefferson County, Georgia up there. And it's like the state attorney said, I can't imagine getting that phone call. And even if it is a hoax, and you as a parent getting that call from your child. I've got a 16-year-old granddaughter that goes to school. I've got a daughter that teaches. So when people say, well, Sheriff don't care, you dang right I do. I've got skin in the game as well. But even if I didn't, I still have a job and a responsibility, and I take it very seriously. Yes, ma'am?
For these types of threats, do you normally see them pick up after a school shooting, or this happened less than a week after?
Yes. I mean, we call it copycat. I mean, and there's a lot of them that they get caught up in the moment or whatever, but they need to understand the seriousness of it. And there's a lot of things going on right now, mental health wise. When we've just got past COVID, there's a lot of things that we're dealing with, and that's all part of this whole mix. The threat assessment stuff that we do, and when we have our school resource deputies that actually sit in on some of these students that are having issues, so that we can do a combined effort to try to help that child. But at some point, you got to draw the line and say, that's it. And that's where we have the hard problem with, is because it's a child. But when we don't hold people accountable for their actions, we're going down a bad, slippery slope. And then this is what we're going to wind up with. Yes, ma'am?
Going with bullying accountability, 2 of the names of the students were released, but the third one wasn't, of the 14-year-old. Will that be released to the public?
They were all released. Madison County, yes, they did release, Madison County did release that. That'll come through there. Yes, sir.
You mentioned, one of them was kind of along the lines of the joke. Was the other one that was a threat, were they actually planning to do something?
No. None of this had, after doing the investigation, we didn't see any ability by them to carry out that. So that's the other issue, is that that's part of that whole investigative process. And before we, and we get ridiculed for you should just close the schools down. Well, that's so disruptive, and that's giving in to the enemy. That's giving in to that's what they want, is all of that dysfunction of our society. And that's where I say, as a community, we've got to stand together. And when something like this happens, by gosh, all of us ought to muster together and say, look, we're not going to accept this. And anybody that puts something out, and thank God for one of the kids that did the reporting, you know, they were concerned. And if we had more doing that, there'd be a lot less of this. And it takes a strong person because everybody wants to be liked. But that was a leader. That student was a leader.
So one student reported another student, and that's how y'all found out?
That's, yes, and that's one of the things that I brag about with our school resource deputies. It takes a special person to be a resource deputy, and they've got to get embedded with those kids, and the kids have to trust them. And that's where, you know, we find out a lot. And I've said this in past talks and whatnot, but, you know, if you want to know what's going on in your community, go to your high school or your middle school, and they're going to tell if you earn that trust from them. And that's one of the things that's helped us in the past thwart some of the other things, bad things that could have happened at school. So, yes, ma'am.
What's something you'd like to say to parents to give them comfort that their kids are in good hands?
I think we just said it. We're doing everything we possibly can. And, you know, and I think one of the coaches of a team said, you know, sometimes your best isn't good enough for some people. And I understand that. But then you have to make a choice on what you want to do with your child. But I can promise you right now, all of us are going to stand together in unity to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to keep our kids safe and our community safe. That's a commitment. And we're not wavering from it one bit. One other question, and then we're out. Anyway, thank y'all very much.